This is the Good Neighbor Podcast, the place where local businesses and neighbors come together. Here's your host, Mike Sedita.
Hello out there, and welcome to episode 165 of the Good Neighbor Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Sedita, and today we have the pleasure of being joined by the Executive Director of Blue Heron Senior Living, Megan Kopstad. Megan, how are you doing today?
Hello, I'm doing great. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. It is a lovely day outside, and I am so happy to have you here. I love your facility. I've been there, not for me as a resident, but for a family member as a resident. It is like a beautiful hotel tucked away in Wesley Chapel, and I'm excited to talk to you about it. Just so you know what the Good Neighbor Podcast is, and so people listening kind of get an idea. The Good Neighbor Podcast was started in 2020. Back when you were kicking residents out of assisted living facilities because we didn't want them in there. We were locking everybody in and we had to be socially distant. It was a way for businesses like you guys to get your message to the community and still be socially distant. And the nice thing is we're doing this. You're in the comfort of your office in Wesley Chapel. I'm in the comfort of my studio here in Tampa Palms. We can do this socially distant, get the message out there. And then the nice thing is over the last 4 years, the Good Neighbor Podcast has blown up. Like we have Good Neighbor Podcasts in Atlanta, Denver, Philadelphia, a bunch in Ohio and Florida. So I'm lucky enough to be the person here in the Tampa market that gets to talk to folks like you. So with that said, tell us a little bit about Blue Heron. I don't want to say senior living. I want to say Blue Heron Hotel / Hilton. But tell us a little bit about Blue Heron.
The Taj Mahal of Blue Heron. Well, Mike,
Taj Mahal of senior living.
Well, thank you for having me on. And just so you know, we will always have a room open for you if you ever decide to come to Blue Heron.
It's coming closer. It's becoming more, it's getting closer than I hoped it would be, but I'm very familiar.
You don't have to worry about utilities or taking out the garbage or doing any outdoor chores. But Blue Heron Senior Living is a 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year community for our older adults who deserve, just the exuberant amount of respect, dignity, care, happiness, joy, every friendship, community, everything that we can bring towards these adults while they go through this next journey in life. One thing that we often talk about is, no resident really wakes up and is like, yep, I'm, selling my house and moving into that assisted living today. No one's truly genuinely excited about it, but that's something that we're able to change, and we're able to change that mindset. So Blue Heron does have different service lines where our residents are able to live well in our assisted living side of our community, which is 73 apartments. They're able to live safely in our memory care community, which is 22 apartments. They're able to get stronger in our rapid rehab. And then they're also able to live comfortably in our long-term care section of our community. So the community really allows for the continuum of care and the ability to age in place where a resident can start in our assisted living. And if they need to make that transition to memory care or need to make the transition to long-term care, we have all of those services available under one roof.
I think having been a person who took care of my parents as they got older and when they passed away and the different options that are out there, I can tell you as a caregiver, it's an extremely scary, uncertain time. It was for my parents, but it also is for the caregiver, because understanding what long-term care is versus memory care versus assisted living, and all the acronyms, the ALF and the LTC. And so being in this, you do this day to day. Is that one of the tougher things, like really getting people up to speed to understand what actually is available, what assistance they may have? Like, I'll give you, for me, my dad came, and you guys are nestled in a beautiful little location. You're basically a stone's throw to Baycare, probably a javelin throw to Advent Health, yes. And then coming very soon is Orlando Health, which is going to be right around the corner. So you almost have like a feeder system right into your rehab section, and that's how my dad got there from Advent to there. But do you have teams of people? Now, this is kind of a leading question because I went through it, so I know. But you have teams of people that actually, on the intake, when someone comes in, kind of sets them up and explains to them the process, right?
Yes, on both sides of our campus. So if someone is coming for rehab services, we have our intake admissions department that really is the first step and the first line of communication with the resident, with the family. Same with coming to rehab. No one wakes up and is like, yep, I'm going to that nursing home for therapy. Like, I wish I could go home. So having our team as the front line to be able to explain, okay, our therapy process, you're here to get stronger. You're not at a level that's safe to go home just yet, but that's what we're here for. We're here, as a stepping stone to be able to get you to that next level of care and do it safely and effectively with our trained clinicians.
So I watched, I lived in Seven Oaks. I've watched that facility be built. It's beautiful. I drove past it every day on my way to the gym, so I know that area very, very well. Can you, from your background, how long, what is your personal journey? Did you start in the medical side or in the business side? How do you end up as the executive director of Blue Heron?
Well, so part of me, I always knew that I wanted to work with geriatrics. I've always just thought they were just some of the sweetest, just had the most amount of wisdom. And I never really got into the pediatric side of things. It's always been about older adults for me.
It's both diapers. It's just different kind of diapers.
But it's just there's just something about older adults. And so it was actually I'm a graduate of the University of South Florida, and it was actually an advisor there on my interest sheet. I had circled both gerontology and business administration, and it was the advisor at USF that said, why not do long-term care administration? And I had been fortunate enough, no one in my family had ever, experienced assisted living at that time or, rehab. So I really didn't know anything about this world. I hate to say that I kind of had a little bit of a negative connotation of, what that environment would be like and what that community would be like. And so once I took my first class at USF on Intro to Aging Studies and getting enrolled in the healthcare administration program there, everything just changed from there. And then in my last semester, I did my internship at a skilled nursing facility, which is like the rapid rehab plus long-term care. And once I did the internship, I was like, this is what I'm meant to do. This is where I'm meant to serve. And now I come to work and it's like I'm seeing 200 of my grandparents, and I'm just I'm living every day as happy as can be. So
what do you think was the negative connotation in your mind ahead? I'm just thinking that we put old people in a closet and left them there. Is that
one of the things that, especially nursing homes, when you hear that word, and especially in the media, most times it's associated with something negative and poor care and, sleepy residents in front of a TV. And so, senior living sometimes has that connotation. I like to reference one of my favorite movies is the movie Up, with the old man and the balloons, Carl. And there's a scene in the movie where there's, two gentlemen that are coming from, I think it's like Shady Oaks Retirement Village or something. And even to Carl, he would rather risk, blowing up hundreds of balloons and flying away than possibly go to this retirement village. Right. And so, I think our society just kind of automatically associates, okay, assisted living or senior living, it's a limited independence, they're not able to do, whatever they want. But it's so much more than that. Our residents, they go to Tampa Bay Rays games, they go to the Columbia restaurant in Ybor, they go to USF basketball games, the skies is truly the limit here at Blue Heron and for our residents and hopefully for their families too.
They just go to Columbia at 3:30 in the afternoon.
Yeah, it's just a little bit early, but they haven't explored the Ybor nightlife. But
yeah, they're usually in bed before the Ybor nightlife takes off. So the big thing I think for people to understand, which I want to talk a little bit about, and you could maybe shed some light on it, is understanding the process. So I don't know, there's not really a garden variety process, but for my dad, example was he came into the rapid rehab, they did a rehab, but you guys didn't have a bed available. He wasn't at the level of assisted living or ALF. He wasn't at that level because he couldn't be independent. He needed a little more care. So he did need LTC or long-term care, but you guys didn't have a bed available to him. So we had to find another location. So is that kind of, and not to be morbid with this, but I mean, there is attrition in the facility. You're going to work with 200 grandparents, but because of the nature of the whole situation, you're losing people. Is it just a timing thing for those beds to be available when somebody's there and when the timing opens up?
It is, sometimes with both our long-term and memory care, unfortunately, no one has this globe that can see into the future and see, okay, in 2 months, I'm going to have a bed available.
Right.
It is truly based on, each individual and how they're progressing, in this journey of life. And so, a lot of it is based on that and that availability. Now, I don't know if you've seen, but we are doing an expansion on our skilled nursing side. So that will be an additional 35 beds, which will be able to accommodate more long-term care residents, more rehab residents, because, in this community, especially, Wesley Chapel, but there's nothing quite like us here. And the need for long-term care beds is only going to rise, as our baby boomer generation, starts to hit those ages.
So let's see how well educated I am having gone through this. Person is sick, injured in the hospital, comes to Blue Heron in rapid rehab.
Mm-hmm.
They get better, but they really can't go home and be in their home alone anymore. But they're still self-sufficient enough that they could live independently. That person then beds are available at every level.
Mm-hmm.
They then now could transfer to Blue Heron, assisted living, and live in your ALF. That's
correct.
Option one. Option two is, like my dad's situation, if a bed was available, he could then go from rehab right into long-term care because he needs a little more hands-on therapy and help. And not really therapy, because once you go into those sides, right, the therapy kind of goes away,
yes.
the rehab. And then the memory care is like the next level of, like, those are generally locked down, right? Like, people might leave and there's more security for memory care. It's a little bit more, it's a smaller group because it's a little more intense, I guess, for lack of a better term.
So with our memory care community, we can have residents that are, more physically able, but yes, they tend to be, maybe exit seeking. But truthfully, it can also be from a safety standpoint. If they don't know how to use a call light or use a pendant, then they're not going to know, okay, I have to use the restroom, let me press my call light or let me press my pendant. So, that can be, we can have somebody completely independent, but still in our memory care community needing those services. Oftentimes I feel like people hear, sometimes what we see on the rehab side is, they're like, oh, my loved one needs long-term care. And it's, not necessarily, they can function in an assisted living and function at that level. So, just even trying to get an understanding of what does long-term care truly mean. And that I would say is probably one of the biggest kind of hurdle conversations that we sometimes have to have with families.
And then the other part of it too is, and there's a whole other level to this. That's the care and the medicine side of it. But then there's the whole other side of it of the Medicare, Medicaid,
correct.
What's covered, doing like trusts to make sure those things are covered. Like, there's all sorts of stuff that goes along with that. Is kind of scary for the caregiver. You guys have people in-house that walk people through the process on that side as well, correct?
Yes. So we have our business office team, our two representatives from our business office. They're able to have those conversations. And, when it comes to a Medicaid application, that's something, that our community can assist with in helping the families do, or we can refer out to Medicaid specialists, people who, are familiar with doing that. And, that's when there's like trust that you can, put money into, and then that protects the assets a little bit. So, we definitely have the resources and support to be able to, walk a family through that. That's, whenever I always try and take as much time with families, especially if this is their first time in assisted living or in, skilled nursing, because it is such a learning curve. You're just kind of, thrown into it. No one actually, I'll say proactively plans for,
Very
these
rarely.
situations to happen. So, that's something.
And then there's the other part of it, the practical day-to-day side of it. And this is just my experience. I'm not saying everybody's like this. My dad had some memory issues, but every time I would come to him, now he's been since I've lived in Tampa 5 years. He passed away last year, but he was in probably like 6 different facilities because he would fall and issue and all this stuff. Every time, now the places are beautiful. Blue Heron is beautiful. He's been in other places that are very nice. Not every level of care is the same, but if you asked my dad to be like the Siskel and Ebert of reviewing facilities, everybody got a thumbs down. Everybody was like tying him to the bed. Everybody, like, no matter what. So part of it as a caregiver that's difficult is going in and trying to assess what's real versus what's imagined and gauge the facility and try to understand really what's going on. So with people with dementia or a form of Alzheimer's, that their memory isn't right, and especially at that age, grandma and grandpa is great, but when grandma and grandpa is in a bad mood, like they take it out on the caregiver. So it's nice to be able to have that dialogue with the staff to sift through and truly understand what's going on. And that was very nice when I was there doing that. So, all right, that's Blue Heron. All right, we recovered it. Let's talk about Megan. All right, so you went to USF. How long have you been the ED at Blue Heron?
Since September of 2022. I had actually started with Blue Heron as the assistant executive director in December of 2020. So I was here before the building even took its first residence.
Right.
We were still in the construction phase. So, that was definitely a learning experience for me, but we didn't take our first assisted living resident until June of 21. So for those 6 months without any residents, I was going stir crazy. Those are the individuals that in the bucket, So finally, when we started and we were finally able to take residents, it was such a beautiful thing. And now, to see it almost 3 years in, to see it come to full fruition and to see, the residents and the community, it's something that's true. Like I truly mean it when I say I love coming to work every single day.
Okay, so I always like to ask people, we've talked about what you do and how long you've been there and what you enjoy. You can clearly see, if you're watching this, the smile on your face when you talk about it. Clearly you enjoy it. Yeah. When you're not there, I mean, I'm trying to think of a whole bunch of old people references. Like, do you like to eat like soft food? Do you like to play chess? Do you like to play like canasta? Do you play a lot of canasta? What do you like to do for fun when you're not at the?
I'm a big cribbage fan. I like
cribbage. Okay, there you go. Do you knit? Are you a knitter? Do you like to knit sweaters?
When I was younger, my grandmother taught us all how to knit, and so I can kind of knit. She was very big with washcloths. We probably have like 500 washcloths in our house, but so I did learn how to knit from my grandmother. But I have a very sweet dog. Her name is Ray. Tampa Bay Rays. Ray from Star Wars. Ray of Sunshine.
So wait, there's so many things there. Time out. We have to pause there for a second. So Ray of Sunshine means, you like that frou-frou-y, like, spiritual thing. Tampa Bay Rays means you're a baseball fan. And Ray from Star Wars means you're a nerd. You're a Star Wars nerd. So you cover all the bases. You sew, you knit, and you play parcheesi or canasta. So do you do anything from like this millennia? Do you like to go on TikTok? Do you do anything?
I'm actually not on TikTok. I never really got into that trend. But so, typically I just enjoy spending time outdoors. I love kayaking. I love just, even the other weekend, I went with my dog Ray and we went to Bayshore and just kind of walked Bayshore. So really, spending time outdoors, being with my dog, being with my family. And then one kind of unique thing that I do is I am not creative at all. I'm more of like I'll say analytical numbers kind of gal, obviously. But one thing that I do is I do paint by numbers. So
you're an artist. You use the numbers to be an artist.
Exactly. I'm not creative. Like I can't, if you handed me a blank canvas, I would draw a stick figure and
me too.
Or maybe a sun in a corner,
Mm-hmm. But little rays coming down. I'm the same way. I can't do any artistic stuff.
But with paint by numbers, it's just something as simple as you just, you're coloring within the lines. And so, sometimes the end results, I know people might laugh and say, well, I did paint by numbers when I was a kid. And, but some of the quality that it turns out, it's like people don't even guess that it's paint by numbers. So that's something that it just kind of helps ease my mind. I can spend hours doing that. So
all right, I have so many questions. Now. Number one, what kind of dog is Ray?
She is a Rottweiler mix. So she's a big dog. Yes.
What does she weigh?
She's about 75 pounds.
Oh, 75. And is she sweet or is she protected?
No. She's very sweet. That's like one thing when we went to Bayshore, she just wants people to pet her and love on her. And so if people didn't pet her, she got sad. But, she does have, I will say she's a very good guard dog. So if she hears, if someone knocks on my door, she kind of goes crazy. Or if she hears, some rustling in our backyard, she gets, on the defense. So, I kind of appreciate that about her.
So you guys have a program there. So like I've had English Bulldogs. You can see Norman in my picture there. I've had a couple that one was an actual therapy dog certified to go into hospitals. So do you guys do that? Do you bring dogs in? Is Ray able to come into the facility?
Yes. So we do allow all pets. They don't only have to be, the emotional support dogs or, the certified dogs. We do allow pets into our community. So Ray comes in. It's great
for the residents.
Yes. We have an organization, Canines for Christ, that come in every week and just really interact with the residents. And, they love that I would say pets and also intergenerational, like young kids, residents go crazy for. I can't give them that, but I can give them a dog.
Well, listen, one step at a time, Megan, one step at a time. So the funny thing is when I got my first English Bulldog back in 2003, I took him to puppy obedience and he was so good. And the woman said, you should go to intermediate obedience. I thought she was just trying to sell me another program, but I went and he was really good. And then she said, he would really be a good, therapy dog because people older, like English Bulldogs, they think of Winston Churchill. It kind of reminds them of that. And he was so lovable. He was so great. He became an AKC Good Citizen. He was a certified therapy dog. And I took him to see my grandmother when she was in an assisted living facility. And I went a few times with him. And then my grandmother passed away. And it was very sad to bring him there. So I ended up working with kids and doing stuff with him for a long time. So the residents bringing a dog in to those facilities, it's like you watch someone who's sitting in their chair kind of hunched over, their body language is bad. As soon as I bring Norman in, it's like everybody they start to perk up, which is great. That's the best thing. Yeah. All right. So that's Ray. Question number 2, your family. Is all your family from here? Is everybody here?
Not everybody lives here. So I'm a Florida native, born and raised here.
You're the person. You're the one.
But so my parents and my sister live here, but my 2 other brothers, they live out of state.
Okay.
But I've got my parents live about 45 minutes away. So still close proximity, which I'm thankful for.
And then the facilities in Wesley Chapel, do you live close by like in that general vicinity, or do you have a big drive every day?
No, I can proudly say that I only live 14 minutes away. So at any point in time during the day, during the evening, during the night, I'm just a hop and a skip away.
Yeah, that's good. It makes life a lot easier when you're that close. For Ray, it does. You have to go home, you can do all that. That's great. So, one of the things I like to ask people is, has there been a time in your journey, in your career, or in your personal life where you've run into a hardship where you were like, I don't know if I'm going to get through this, whether it was something in schooling or something in the facility or whatever. And what did you do to get through it and come out the other side to be sitting in your position now?
Yeah, I do think, one of the biggest challenges that I face is, I'm younger. When I started off in this industry, I came right from college. So I was 21 years old, at the community I was formerly at, I was the assistant administrator. So, I've got directors and managers who are 20 plus years older, looking at me and, they're thinking this 20 something year old's not going to give me direction, so that's been one of the things that even just, throughout my experience and throughout the years, now even 6 years later, is something that a thought always pops into my head. But, through determination, through perseverance, and really just, how I feel, the person that I am, I never want to come in, and I will never act like I'm the smartest in the room. Yes, I have a licensed nursing home administrator's license, but, especially when it comes to the directors, I look to them to be the specialist in, their fields and their departments. I'm not a nurse. I'm not the director of nursing. So when it comes to nursing things, I'm turning to that individual and, expecting or needing that support from that individual. So, my age, I feel like, is my biggest hindrance. It's the only thing I can't change is my age. But being able to rise above that and just assert myself and assert, my confidence and leadership.
So would you say your management style, because listen, I've been in a similar situation. I was in a role and people were my peers, and then all of a sudden I was promoted and now they were my subordinates. So there is a level of, how to manage that.
Mm-hmm.
For you, do you feel like your management style is making everybody feel included in the process so they know they're an important cog in the team? That, is that the way you do it?
Yeah, I never want, one thing that we talk about, or that I talk about in orientation, is, there's not one individual that's more important than the others. There have been moments and times, if we've needed to clean a room, I've got a housekeeping card. If we needed to, paint a wall, I'm in there with maintenance.
Right.
There was a time that I was in the dining department for, who knows how many days in the back of the dish pit, but I never want somebody to feel like I would never step in and help or, do the work that needs to be done for our residents, for our staff, for our families. So, that's my leadership style is really, just encouraging that, we are all players in this. There's not one, there's not one person that's better. And surely I'm not better than, any of our directors or any of our employees here.
And how big is the team? In just Blue Heron, how many people do you have total on staff?
We have about 219 employees here.
Wow. And now is Blue Heron, if I remember correctly, Blue Heron is part of a bigger organization? Like, you guys have other facilities in a parent company, or is Blue Heron independent? Or
we are managed by a company, so we do have like sister facilities. There's 5 here in Florida, including Blue Heron, that are all managed by the same company.
Gotcha. Well, listen, I think I've resolved your age problem just in this conversation. If you carry some washcloths with you, and then when you meet somebody, just say, hey, listen, why don't you take this washcloth? I made it myself. Age issue solved. They'll just be like, wow, you look incredible for 62. Or they'll just think, it'll be a compliment. You'll be like, you look amazing. And they'll think you're...
Most times I always have a jacket on. Most rooms are really cold for me too. So
perfect. You have it. The age thing won't be a problem. You'll be good. And in a few years, you'll be hoping that the age thing goes back to the way it was. So as we start to wrap this up, what is the one thing people listening to this, if they are in the situation like I was in, and there's a bunch of facilities and there's a bunch of language, what's the one thing they need to know? If they're in Wesley Chapel, New Tampa, Zephyr Hills, Dade City, that whole section of town, why do they need to know to come to Blue Heron?
Yeah, I'm a big believer, when I make decisions, I want them, I want to make sure I'm making the best decision. So even when an individual comes to tour Blue Heron, I always recommend go see other, communities, because I never want somebody to, feel, I never want to be like a car salesman and, selling them on a service or a product. Yeah. I'm a big believer, do your research, look at Google reviews, find out, what community is going to be the best fit for your loved one and the best fit for your family, because, hopefully it's Blue Heron. But I never want somebody to feel pressured or, feel. And I think the biggest thing that you can do is just do your research and really come here and experience the culture that we have here. We do visits where, some of our assisted living residents, if they're interested in doing like a lunch tour, they can come in for the day, spend some time in our programs. Today we had a happy hour for our residents, alcohol provided. But
I need to get on that calendar. I need to be on that schedule.
But that's one thing we do live music here as well. Most residents get to see, if I'm known for anything around here in the community, it's for my dancing. So whenever there's live music,
Whoa. All right, so we're going to have to arrange an off-site visit, maybe a remote podcast where we're going to do a little bingo, a little dancing, a little open bar.
When they hear that song playing, they're looking and screaming my name. So
I will tell you the funniest. So look, having a parent who has dementia, you have to have fun with it, because if you don't, it's such a heavy subject. Like, it's a heavy subject hanging over everything all the time. Yeah. So I would go play bingo with my dad at the facility he ultimately ended up at. And like 3 calls in, I would just say bingo. Like, I would just say, is this game bingo? And watch the whole room like erupt and get so mad. Like, I would do it like I was asking him a question. I would uncontrolled. You get that laughter where you can't stop it, like you're in a room where you want to stop it. Every time I would just amuse myself with that whole little scenario. So that was my fun when I would go.
It's a very serious game.
It's serious. It is super serious. You don't mess around. And then depending on the game, bingo, it's not just the straight line. You could have rocks, you could have the full board. There's a whole thing. We can do a whole separate podcast on your dancing, on why Ray is named Ray, and the whole Star Wars saga, as well as the importance of bingo and the seriousness of bingo. But we're out of time. So tell people, how do they get a hold of you? If I have a family member that I need to try to get into the Blue Heron system, what's the best way for people to reach out? Who do they call? What do they call?
Yeah, people are viewers, anyone listening to this, or even anybody that's driving by, they're welcome to just stop into our community. And we do walk-in tours 7 days a week. So at any point in time, they can come. Individuals can reach out to myself. My cell phone number is 352-534-1408. They can also reach out to Lily Gonzalez, who is our community relations director, and her number is 352-467-0238. I can send our emails, so then those can be posted as well too. They're kind of a mouthful, so
we'll include any social posts, any emails. We'll include Lily's phone number. We'll include your phone number. And I would say that, to kind of wrap this up, having gone through this, what you just touched on right there would be the thing I would suggest to anybody is do a drop-in visit, because that's the best way to truly gauge a facility. Like, just showing up there. When my dad was in the hospital the last time, they gave me a list of a bunch of places. I found the perimeter of where I wanted to be. And listen, if you're living in Wesley Chapel and mom and dad need a place to stay, you want to keep them kind of close. I didn't want to put my dad in Dunedin when I lived in New Tampa. It doesn't make sense. So if you're local and you're there and you're close, you want to go there, but drop in. It's the best way to gauge the facility. Megan, it was so much fun having you on. I do appreciate it. Thank you for being a good neighbor. Thank you for being on the Good Neighbor podcast. I am going to drop by for happy hour and dancing very, very soon.
Perfect. Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome.
Thanks for listening to the Good Neighbor Podcast Passcode. To nominate your favorite local businesses to be featured on the show, go to gnppasco.com. That's gnppasco.com, or call 813-922-3610.